we return to the subject of the blessings of life. And in fact, we come to the last blessing of the third set of blessings of life to do with setting oneself up in life. If you remember the blessings which have gone ahead of us so far, then within this group of blessings of setting oneself up in life, we have talked about the different skills which are necessary to stand on one's own 2 feet, especially to provide for oneself financially, whether it be artfulness in knowledge, artfulness in application of one's knowledge, self-discipline to know the difference between the appropriate or inappropriate uses of one's skills, and last but not least today, to look at the skills in communication, which is more than merely knowing whether to tell the truth or not, but really the artfulness in communication which will help us to link with other people as we are working, perhaps so that we don't have to work all on our own, but we can work together with a team of other people, communicating with other people, giving encouragement to other people. For Buddhism, the things we say are a topic which is quite close to our hearts, because you could say that the fact that Buddhism has lasted for 2,500 years is almost entirely to do with people's skill in explaining the benefits of the teachings of the Lord Buddha. There has been no other way of promoting Buddhism apart from people's ability to explain teachings to one another. So this essence of communication is something very close to Buddhism itself. The skill in explaining things to people, in answering questions, in expanding upon explanations of things to make difficult concepts easy to understand. All this is part of the skills which have helped Buddhism to spread. And it can be said that although many acts of karma can be committed physically, whether it's killing or stealing or sexual misconduct, it's much easier to mistakenly create bad karma by the things which one says, because often it's harder to control our tongue than to control other parts of our body. For a person who's not used to having the mindfulness about the things they say, it's often the case that we say too much. Once we've finished talking about all the things which are useful to say, if we keep on talking, then the content of what we say becomes less and less useful or beneficial for the world to hear. For the 5 precepts, we already know that to restrict ourselves to saying what is really true by avoiding telling lies is one important way in which we can help to limit the things that we say. And even that is quite a challenge for people in the beginning if they've always been used to chattering. But what we will say in this blessing goes beyond merely talking about truthful speech to talking about what is artful speech. And because Buddhism depends very closely on the things that one says, then of course the Buddha himself was a very accurate analyst of the components of speech, the components of what we say, how we say it, and the quality of what is in the content of what we say. In the olden days, people used to wonder why in our face everything seems to come in pairs. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils. But when we come to our mouth, we only have one. Because our eyes only have the task of seeing, but yet we have 2 of them. Our nostrils only have the task of smelling things, but yet we already have 2 of them. Our ears only have the task of hearing things, but we have 2 of them too. And how come our mouth, which has 2 duties, which is eating and speaking, we have only one of these? And in the olden days, they used to speculate that maybe the reason why we have only one mouth, despite having 2 tasks for it to do, is that both eating and speaking should be things that we do in moderation. For fish live and die by their mouth. They live by eating with their mouth, but if they eat up too much, especially hooks on a piece of string, then it can be the end of their life as well. So just as fish live and die by their mouth, also we should pay attention to how we use our mouth to make sure that it's only skillful things that we do with it. In order to choose and to be conscious about the sort of things we can do with our mouth, the sort of karma, which can be good or bad, which entails the use of our mouth, we have to analyze the different components of any sort of speech. And if you want to look at the roots of the analysis, then you can say that there are 3 factors which can make speech better or worse. The first is the intention behind what you say. And normally, as with any sort of good karma, then the intention behind what you say ought to be a good intention, rather than anger, hatred, jealousy. The second component is the words we use to express what we want to say. Because often there's a choice of different words which you can use to say the same thing. And lastly, not just what you intend, not merely just what you say, but also the occasion you choose to say it on, which also can have a big effect on the effectiveness of the message. So these are the mainstay of our analysis of the things one says. And what I'm going to propose to you today is that the sort of speech which is worthy of persons like ourselves who are intent on self-cultivation, who are intent on leading a good life and to be an example for the rest of the world. It's not just any old speech, not just speech that is true, but it should be artful speech. And for artful speech, you need to have 5 components, 5 criteria which your speech passes if you are going to say it at all. Anything less, supposing the speech or the thing we want to say meets only 3 or 4 of the criteria, then that's not good enough. In which case, we would be better off keeping those words to ourselves rather than saying it out loud. The problem with speech is that For as long as you keep what you want to say to yourself, there's no problem for anyone. As long as it's merely thoughts in your mind, it's not public. It doesn't create effects on anyone else. But once you say it, once it becomes public domain, if you find out later that what you said is not very artful, or it's hurting other people, or it's causing suffering to other people, you can't take back those words. So it's better to make sure that you say the right thing in the first place, rather than having to make up for the damage later. So this is the origin of the concept of 5-star speech, where nothing less than 5 stars is good enough. If you talk about a hotel, if you haven't got enough money for a 5-star hotel, then maybe you can spend a little less and go to a 3-star hotel, or a 1-star hotel, or maybe a hotel with no stars at all. But for speech, if it's anything less than 5 stars, it's not worth the bother, because it'll only create problems for you in the future.